lot of up and downs, a lot of crying, and a lot of things really to share with you.
Here, what noise do potatoes make?
Hey, how are you? Welcome to the channel. My name is Cassandra and this is where I talk about my life experiences and lessons learned to try and help other people who might be in similar situations. If that sounds interesting to you, then please go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. In this video, I would basically like to set the scene and give a little bit of context for one of the main themes on this channel, which is all about ADHD and my experience with being diagnosed with ADHD as an adult. So people with ADHD have quite a good skill of making a short story long. I'm going to try and resist that as much as possible because I have literally, oh gosh, countless ideas of videos that I want to make. So I'm gonna try and really keep this succinct. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and tell you the context of where I'm at right now in my ADHD journey. As of recording, this is April 2020 and I was first diagnosed with ADHD at the ripe old age of 31 just last year in December. Then I was diagnosed again in February this year. So in 3 months I was diagnosed with ADHD, not once, but twice. So I absolutely definitely have it. Again, I'll make a video about that as well, but I won't get into detail about that just now. But yes, I'm then still very early in terms of my ADHD journey. So there's a lot of things that I'm still experiencing and learning along the way. And yeah, I really want to make videos about my experiences and these things that I've learned, the ups and downs, as I say, to try and help people who are in similar situations. I know that there are a lot of people already who post very much like educational content that's very well structured and very well put together. Those are great. I really appreciate those, but just giving you advance warning, that's not my jam. I'm very much going to be giving you my experiences and kind of just like talking to you about them like we're just buddies, you know, as opposed to, yeah, making them like super duper laid out and informative with like references and stuff like that. I'm not gonna do that, just to warn you. What I do have though is this great big diagram or like flowchart which actually maps out my ADHD journey. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So here you can see this, as I say, this great big like map, diagram, whatever, that I will show you to illustrate where I am in my ADHD journey. And there is like a key here at the bottom. Oh, it just glitches sometimes. The grey ones are like locked stages, if you like if you're like going through a game or something like that. The kind of orangey ones are things that are unlocked and currently in progress. Green stages that are unlocked and done. And just to make a point, the red is impossible. We'll get to that. So let's start from the start then. Where am I? So you see here that it all kicks off with appearing highly functional, which is great, right? I'm being sarcastic. And I know that there's a thing about this label of highly functional, you know, that it's not good, it's like ableist and stuff like that. So just to be clear, I'm not meaning it like in the sense of that way. I just mean in terms of like, it's more about masking, I guess, that people think I'm fine when I'm not fine. That's what this is more about. And then this goes to like struggling to do everyday basic things, which is always fun. I then eventually was fully acknowledging my struggles because I've thought that I had ADHD since I was a teenager, like genuinely. I thought that I had ADHD for more than 15 years before I actually saw a diagnosis. I was busy dealing with a lot of other things, to be very honest with you. A lot of not nice things going on in the home life, a lot of other mental health issues that largely resulted from that. So I was dealing with that for like a decade plus. And it was only really once I'd made so much progress in those things, once I'd improved my life and my situation and everything like that so much better through, concentrated hard work, that I was like, okay, something that I still have never addressed is ADHD. And that was just like the next step for me to look at that too. So that's when I eventually acknowledged the struggles that I had. There's a lot going on in this diagram. As you can see, there are a lot of different loops. So then at some point I asked for help, which of course leads to a shame spiral. Then you just struggle on your own again, and then eventually you come to your senses and acknowledge that you're struggling, ask for help, feel awful, struggle again. There's also the ignoring struggles, acting as if everything is okay and continuing to mask. I should really update the wording on that. But yeah, anyway. And then there's also continuing to struggle without the treatment or knowing how to improve things, realizing how bad things are, and crying. This will be a recurring theme in this, crying. And then of course there's a lot of researching, when I decided to pursue a diagnosis. I was seeing things about ADHD, but I wasn't actively researching it until I decided to pursue the diagnosis. So there was a lot of that, and it's still ongoing, which is why it's in orange. That of course then leads to realizing that various struggles are because of ADHD. Of course, this blows your mind, or did me anyway, and then talk excessively about the discoveries, much to the annoyance of loved ones. Do more research, realise that more struggles are related to ADHD, cry, more crying. And of course, it takes a very long time usually to get diagnosed with ADHD, especially if you're literally not a child boy with like the stereotypically presenting symptoms. It's very, very difficult to get a diagnosis, and maybe I'll do another video on that. Let me know in the comments if you would be interested in why it's so hard to get a diagnosis. So then of course that leads to a lot of time where you continue to struggle without the treatment, yada yada yada. Eventually, after pursuing a diagnosis, you then research how to get the diagnosis, read multiple accounts of how to do that, try to book multiple appointments for assessment. I booked my first appointment for the assessment, which was very, very difficult to do, by the way, extremely difficult to do. And I will make a video about how to get an ADHD diagnosis as an adult in Germany, which is where I'm currently based. It's where both of my diagnoses were given, I guess. So it already took a very long time and a lot of struggles to book the first appointment to be assessed for ADHD, and thankfully I had a lot of help in doing that. And because I had already read these multiple accounts about how difficult it is to get a diagnosis, after I got the first appointment, I said, great, now let's book one with another practice, because I was basically foreseeing that it's very possible that it wouldn't be successful the first time. So even though I did get a diagnosis the first time and the second time, the first time still was not a successful experience, and I was extremely grateful to myself for having the foresight to book a second appointment. Subscribe and turn on notifications to know when that video comes out, talking about being diagnosed twice and what that was all about. So then, as I say, it takes a long time to get an appointment for an assessment, so then you have to wait a long time. In the meantime, you hyper focus on improving things immediately, you keep researching, nothing is ever enough. That loops back. Then finally having the appointment for the diagnosis. Thankfully, you'll see here that the don't get diagnosis, for me, that's greyed out, that's still locked, because as I say, I got diagnosed after both assessments. So then getting the diagnosis, oh, look at that, crying again. It's an emotional experience, okay? It's a lot. It's a lot. Then trying to get approval for the recommended treatment. Again, I will talk about that in my video about getting a diagnosis as an adult in Germany. And then in my case, on the journey that I'm on, then trying medication, monitoring the impact, also known as titration, which I will also do a video on. If you like, let me know in the comments if that would be interesting to you, and also any specific questions that you have about that. I will try and take that into consideration. Medication and or dosage doesn't help. That's unlocked, done for me. Trying different doses. Oh, here we get a hint then of why I went to the second doctor and got diagnosed again. The first time, the doctor didn't know how to treat me because I have comorbidities, which basically means that I have other brain and mental health conditions that they admitted to me that they didn't know how to help me. After wasting 3 months of my life or more, which was especially frustrating because they specifically have on their website that they specialise in ADHD, and then they admitted to me that they actually don't. Yeah, and then that goes back to the subsequent appointment. Then hopefully eventually we find the right medication, the right dosage and stuff like that so that things aren't quite so bad. Realise the intensity, the frequency and the impact of the struggle. Also leads to crying. It's a very overwhelming experience, this whole thing. Yeah, maybe I should do a video on that as well, like what it's like to, like how it feels to go through this, so not just like the process, but then also the emotional journey. I'll put that on my list. Crying again, more crying, always crying. Hopefully learning how to manage the symptoms and feel better on the inside. And here in red, what will never happen is to be cured. That's not a thing. You cannot be cured for ADHD. You can treat the symptoms, you can make accommodations, you can make life less but you cannot cure ADHD. Something that I haven't done is to start ADHD specific therapy. I have been in counselling on and off for over 10 years. For over a decade I've been in counselling. I will do a video on that too, why that's the case and whether or not it's worth it, because that's a really long time. But I've never had any ADHD specific therapy or coaching, and I did think that maybe that's something that I would benefit from, but that has not realised for me as of yet. And on here, this would also lead to realising struggles are related to ADHD. Hopefully then it would lead to not doing things in neurotypical ways anymore, not forcing myself to do stuff in ways that don't suit my brain chemistry and the way that my body works, to hopefully reduce the frequency of those struggles. As I say, this is still locked for me currently. And how about that eventually it leads to more crying? And yeah, I've put like these little grey question marks all sort of dotted around throughout the way, and those have also turned out to be realised, and then I just turn them into the appropriate things, because as much as I like to plan things out and get things clear in my head so that I know what to expect, what the process is going to be, how I should prepare and kind of carry myself through the journey, I also fully understand and appreciate that you can't know and plan for everything at the start. That's just not realistic. And so I put these little boxes with the question marks in just to account for the surprises that come up, like having a doctor admit to you that you're apparently so messed up in so many different ways that they just don't know what to do with you. So that is where I'm at in my journey right now. As I say, just to sort of set the scene for you and give you a little bit of context, because ADHD will be one of the main themes of this channel, and I will be posting a lot of stuff, or at least I plan to, about, you know, my experiences with ADHD. As I say, things like to help people in their own journey and what the process is like, giving people like that information to help them on their way, to talk about like my experiences and let people know what it's like from more of the human perspective than from the facts and information perspective, but you know, to actually be like, I'm a person, this is what it's like, this is what I'm going through. And then also things that I've learned, techniques that I've developed that help me, that I can share with you so you can try them out and maybe that they also help you. I'll also be reviewing things that might be really helpful for people with ADHD. And then, as I also mentioned, like I do have comorbidities, other neurodivergent and mental health stuff going on. So I will also post videos related to that as well. A lot of up and downs, a lot of crying, and a lot of things really to share with you. As I say, I have so many ideas already, but I would really love to hear from you what you're interested in hearing about. Quite a few people have already reached out to me looking for information and advice, because I've already been sharing some stuff about my ADHD journey on Twitter. So yeah, a lot of the content is with those questions in mind that people have already asked me. But of course, now that I'm expanding this out, please also let me know what you think, what you are interested in hearing about from me, what you would find helpful. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe and turn on notifications so that you are notified of said future videos that I am planning to post. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and I will see you next time. Bye!